It's time for Cutting Edge Consciousness with Freeman Michaels and Barnet Bain. Thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here.
With Barnet Bain. Good moment, everyone.
That was a long fade out. Did you hear the music still playing in the background? I kind of like that.
I know, I sort of like it. I mean, it just makes us feel like real FM guys. I'll have to drop. We'd have to drop our voice down into sort of a baritone range, and
it's good though.
Taking you right through to the early hours, right?
Yeah, it's
good. Good moment, everyone.
Yeah, good moment. Lots of learning going on.
Oh, really? Say more.
Well, you and I just had a conversation about this.
I'm so in the moment that I have no recollection of it whatsoever.
5 minutes ago, it's just not in your frame of reference.
Exactly.
Here's my big learning. Learning is kind of even brittle. I don't want to call it that. Mm-hmm. Aha might be a way to describe it. Mm-hmm. I used to believe not long ago, like, a week ago or 10 days ago or yesterday or something. Supper, exactly. Mm. That I oughtn't to contradict myself.
Yeah.
And I have come to understand that if I'm going to hold complexity, if I'm going to be okay with complexity, mm-hmm. then because in the past, if something contradicted what I was,
your infatuation with the straight line,
whatever story I was hooked on,
exactly.
Then I got really thrown.
Yeah. Yep. What are you doing? It's all working fine. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's not. Keep talking. There we are.
That was really interesting. So we are, for those of you who are driving around the county and are wondering what is going on in that studio, we were
adjusting.
A little technical, yeah.
We've had such a funny technical day. It's been now you're obsessed with it. I'm feeling good about it. We've had some strange technical issues lately. I don't know what's going on with that. What's that about?
Well, it has something to do with whatever you were saying vis-a-vis complexity and the ability to hold the unpredictable, the spontaneity of things at the same time as we can make room for our desire for it to all unfold in a very orderly way.
Yeah. It's a mess, and I'm okay with it.
It's a beautiful mess.
It's a beautiful mess.
There is such a thing, I am convinced. There is a distinction to be made between the frightening chaos that ensues when we dig in against a total systemic upending, and the beautiful chaos of loving the desire to be orderly in the midst of a total
breakdown,
shuffling of all decks.
Yeah. When I was acting, we go back to this a lot. When the
Drake Belson.
No, this is more when I was acting on stage, mm-hmm. and things would go wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of my greatest moments. One of my funniest moments, I was playing Charlie in Charlie's Aunt. This was summer stock theater. And so we were doing 4 shows. We put them up in 4 weeks, 1 week of rehearsal, like crazy to put up 4 shows that quickly. And then we ran them in rep the whole summer long. And I played Charlie in Charlie's Aunt. And they had a very cartoonish set. And so the tree was like a cutout. It was a cutout tree. And it was supposed to look goofy. But we had this chase scene, and I knocked over the tree. In the middle of the way, this tree collapses into the middle of the stage. And I'm running, and I stop, and I look at the tree, and I'm like, what do I do? So I go and I pick the tree up. It was one of the funniest, greatest moments. And after the show, people were like, I love when you knocked over the tree. You guys that was like brilliant
fabulous
blocking. We used to call it blocking, right? Brilliant blocking. Knock over the tree, knock over the tree. That's so fun because it fit with the cartoony set. And you're almost laughing at the set as you're going along.
First rule of theater, improvisational theater, and of the spiritual life, is yes and
exactly.
And to everything.
That's
always.
Right. Yeah.
Always.
All right. So this is
in all ways.
This is such a great topic for our guest today, joining us.
Why?
Because
yes, and
spiritual chaos. That's the topic.
Beautiful chaos.
Beautiful chaos.
The beautiful chaos. Well, let's talk about beautiful chaos with a friend of our show and our listeners, He is no stranger to our listeners, and if he is a stranger, then you may not be devoted enough listener.
Yeah, go back and
listen. We'll check on you 6 months down the road. Arjuna Ardagh is with us, an author, speaker, founder of the Awakening Coaching Training Program, and a general good guy. And we are delighted and happy to have him back with us. I think this is his third visit here.
I think it is.
That's probably a world record.
No, we've had people 3 times.
Only you. Arjuna, we're so happy to have you here.
Well, I'm very happy to be here too. And I was just thinking, in the spirit of your conversation of contradiction, I guess if I'm an all-round good guy, I must also be an all-round horrible guy as well, because we all of us live in these incredible spectrums, which I think is really what you've been pointing towards in your conversation.
Well, we were
yes,
as we were guzzling thermoses of coffee earlier in the day. Yes, we suddenly we thought that the more awareness we have of the more players that we are.
That's it.
Yeah.
Is the more power to, as opposed to power over, is the more presence that we bring to the moment, the more access we have to
being
life.
in the moment. I mean, in the moment, you know, if we require the moment to look a certain way, and we're always trying to, to direct, if you will, versus this beautiful improv of life. Like, who knows what's going to show up? And then when it does, like, oh, how cool is this? Versus the excruciating, experience of trying to, make everything look one way or the other. Control.
So this leads to a question that I want to put to Arjuna.
I'm glad he's here to answer it.
Thank goodness.
What's the question?
Things are working out already. So, Arjuna, the distinction between being in control and being in charge.
Oh.
Would you open that up for us?
Sure. I think that this is a fascinating conversation that you're having, and it's entertaining, but it's also like so incredibly liberating to understand these things. I believe that the greatest leap of maturity we can all make when things really fall into place is to recognize that you are not a linear being. You are actually, there's not one of you. And that sounds a little scary, like you're kind of nuts or something, but actually all of us have multiple dimensions. And as soon as we realize that, that's when the control relaxes, because the control is like one part of us trying to dominate over everything else. Being in charge is more like an authoritative recognition that you do contain opposites, you do contain contradictions, and that's the beauty of you. That's what makes you exciting and beautiful and wonderful. That's why I'm so madly in love with both of you, because you're so, well, I know Barnet much better, of course, but you're so multidimensional. You've got so many different sides to you, and I think that's what makes life so wonderful, that we are contradictory beings. We are multidimensional beings.
I love that. It's so interesting, too, for me, because in moments, I watch something arise. Let's say it's one of those stressful thoughts, and it's very familiar, right? It's one of my little storylines that maybe I inherited from my family of origin. My martyr complex is very much part of my family of origin. So let's say a thought pops up, and I'm ready to jump on it and start promoting the storyline, or the, let's call it, thread of possibility, or maybe even the aspect of me that would be an expression of, the part I could play, in today's version of this drama. And the awareness of what that is, and going, wow, do I want to run down that interpretation? Or do I want to allow for a different orientation, different interpretation to come up? And that's the piece that's liberating. It is this element of choice. We keep talking on this show about consciousness is choice. It's the ability to kind of, see the complexity and note even, oh, how interesting. Maybe there's an archetype being played out, or maybe there's, a piece of like a repeat, like a dynamic I have with someone. Oh, we're going to do that again. And that little observer, that little observing ego, that sense of self that goes, oh, I can choose here. That's the piece that I feel empowered by. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. That's exactly the liberation. So that's what awakening means, is to recognize there is a dimension of you that is already free.
We can all go home now.
It's not in the future. Yeah, it's not a future. We are already home. Here we are.
We're already home.
everybody listening to the radio today, we are all of us already home.
That's right. Where seldom is heard a discouraging word, or unless there is a discouraging word, because what can an antelope say?
That's kind of poetry, is that, Barnett? He's doing what are those called? The oh gosh, my grandfather used to love like limericks, but that's not exactly right. But where it was like rhymey, and we would like have like dozen of them he could pull out.
Lameness, it's called.
At any given moment.
It's called lameness.
As an anecdote.
So, Arjuna, you're referring to many things. We could go from that into many, many, many directions and infinite directions. I know you, and I know you're highly, highly creative. And so what I hear in this is that we have, to the degree that we are close and tender and develop a relationship with all of these aspects of self, I contain multitudes, as Whitman said. We have more and more freedom to go off the well-trodden road and begin to create fresh, virgin paths.
Yes. You know, Barnett, I feel like most of us today, we have a sense of responsibility and concern about the planet. You know, you've got a daughter. I've got 2 sons. And
Freeman has
3.
Freeman, yeah.
2 sons and a daughter.
Yeah, he's got a bridge club.
Yeah, so
together we have a basketball team.
You know, and I'm sure many of the people listening have children too. So even if we've already lived many good years, we have our children to think of, and we want to create a saner world. And I believe that what you're talking about here today is the way to create a saner world, is to unplug from all of these parts that are basically fundamentalists and want control, and to relax into the dimension of you that is free, that is humorous, that is creative, that can really make a difference to the world that has never been made before. And this is the way to do it. It's just this shift of attention from these voices that take over to that which recognizes them. That which recognizes them is already at home. That's the profoundly good news about being alive today on the planet.
Well, we're in making a friend of contradiction, making a friend of paradox. You know, again, in the tyranny in my own head is the either or versus what Barnett said earlier. You know, we could do the and, you know, because in our community, there are lots of wonderful, well-meaning people who hop on a particular, let's call it storyline, which is so narrow and kind of righteous in a way that doesn't feel good. You know, even if it feels like a, what's the language? It just feels like, really? Is that the only way we can hold it? Like, I don't want to diminish it because global warming or, you know, the fiscal collapses or it's all true. It's fine. And I get it. And it's so worth noting and considering. And simultaneously, there's a whole nother thread of possibility that that is contradictory to that, right? That I can kind of get into, right? In a moment. I'm doing some business coaching, and I'm in the middle of like strategy, and I'm loving it. And then in the moment, feeling like conflicted, like, does this fit with my ideology? And the beauty of where I am right now is, you know, and not to be trite, but it's all good. Like they're just threads of possibility, threads of interpretation. And they can all coexist, even if they seemingly contradict.
And from the place you're speaking, the entire world is your friend. You see, when we have fundamentalist positions, we make enemies because anyone who holds the opposite point of view is your enemy.
That's right.
But when you can see the multidimensional nature of things, everything becomes your friend. And you see, the way you're speaking, I think that's the way that we're going to have the planet that we really want. It's not so much right now to do with political change or economic change, although those things are an important byproduct. The way to save the world is exactly what you're speaking of, is to embrace contradiction, to become multidimensional.
There's a wonderful story that I heard many, many, many years ago from a dear friend who's in the clergy. And he tells a story of someone who led a life filled with good works, with a desperate edge of this sort of messianic fervor. And he arrives at the pearly gates, and he says to St. Peter, he's got this list of how important it had to be done. This has to be done. This has to be done. And St. Peter said, you only have to save yourself and let God take care of the rest. And so true. So it's a paradox. We have these. They seem to be apparent contradictions, and there is a level of pullback at which the frightening chaos that we spoke about earlier resolves into a beautiful chaos, a higher order of chaos where these contradictions resolve, the paradoxes resolve into being states. There's this time inside of time. We are always going to have this kind of, we don't want to get into this heady, non-dual discussion.
Why not?
But because we have to sell some cars in a minute.
Oh, you're right. Well, let's do that, and then let's come back. And there's also something else I want to weave in here. You know, sometimes, and this is, again, something we've talked about on the show, but it's so worth bringing up again, sometimes the we conversation is a distraction for what I need to take responsibility for in my life. Oh, great, I can make it about the we, and then all of my feelings of anger or whatever can get projected onto this imaginary enemy that then can be a place or a repository for me to dump all my stuff.
So
versus taking ownership.
Arjuna and Freeman and I
will be back.
We will be back right after we take care of some business. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
So glad you're all with us. You stayed with us. Now that you know exactly where to shop, where to dine, where to buy, we're glad you're with us. And here's where you'll know where to be.
Oh, that is great. That was fantastic.
Arjuna had somewhere that he was that he felt he was going to thread down a certain path.
Yeah, what's that all about, Arjuna? Where are you at with all this beautiful chaos we've created?
Yeah, well, you know, I was just reflecting that we've been talking in a fairly abstract, high-level way, but actually what we're talking about today is the key to making your life work, you know. Things are not as secure as they used to be. We've had some shifts in the economy and so on. But actually what's proven to be the case is when you can embrace this kind of multidimensional reality, when you can recognize these different parts of yourself, the result is that you flow more with something bigger than all of that. In China, they call it the Tao. You know, in India, they call it Dharma. We could call it the way. You flow more with the force of life itself. You make more money more easily. Your relationships go better. Your health gets better. You experience less stress because you're no longer living life from a fundamentalist, rigid position. You're flowing more with life itself, and it really works. You know, this is actually the most efficient way to have your life work is to shift your consciousness.
Well, we have such an experience. We're so trained. The air we breathe, the water we drink, the values, the culture that we live in. We learn how to struggle and how to have a life running after things, and it adds up to an experience of what the Buddhists refer to as sorrow and bewilderment. And there is a connection beyond, in the moment, beyond this endless being running around and being led by where the mind goes to the very next thing, and then. A happy moment followed by a desperate moment, followed by a neutral moment, but always a compare and contrast moment, and always an experience of the past being flung into the future, and with the pretend that we're exploring something new. So I by no means, we teach and we talk about what we most are intrigued with, and so I have my nose like a bloodhound up into the air, and there's a scent of something beautiful and true that I am following and that I am tuned into and tuning into. It's not like I am living in that place. And yet, more and more I am aware of how uncomfortable it is driven by all of the running commentary that goes on between my ears.
Yeah, it's interesting because Arjuna, even as you were speaking, that we can make more money, we can do this. I feel like so much of these great spiritual principles, so quickly we crunch them down to the 4 ways we can be successful, the 4 ways we can make it. Like how, again, I use the language tyranny, how quickly things organize back to this small story of possibility.
How can I control?
It's back to control again.
Status, safety, security, power, and sex.
Let me just.
I know you weren't saying that.
I know you weren't saying that. I know you weren't. I'm just saying that I'm copying to my own propensity to take what you said that was so beautiful and such a generous offer and try to crunch it down into but how can I get my needs met?
Exactly.
How can I get exactly. It's just I'm commenting on the incessant nature of this small story that so many of us have taken on.
Yeah, that's where I go.
Exactly.
That's where we go.
Well, the reason that I wanted to emphasize this practical dimension is oftentimes we feel I'm so busy trying to make money. I'm so busy trying to take care of my relationship and my kids, my this and my that. I don't have time to attend to consciousness. But actually, when we attend to the quality of our state of consciousness, how much you are fragmented or how much you are observing, actually, that's the fastest way for all of these things to take care of themselves. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
I absolutely agree with you.
Easily.
Yeah, I know. I think from my perspective, there's a kind of diligence in, and maybe it's simple. Again, I don't want to get like tactical, like here's the strategy, you'll be happy if you do this. But that it's just a discipline of coming back to my breath, coming back to getting in the moment, grounding, centering, and examining what aspect of me is in the driver's seat. I mean, going back to the very start of this conversation, knowing that I contain these multitudes, that these various aspects of me, and to the degree I have this kind of observing ego, I can kind of choose, well, where do I want to direct my attention? What would really serve a kind of vision I have, a quality-based vision. Again, speaking to this quality of my presence, quality of my effort, the quality of the experience, that it's fun, right? That's a very high now I'm getting the language, higher vibration frequency. It is frequency and it is high vibration, but again, so many people are manipulating that to try to say.
Get you a rainbow outfit.
I know. So look, I don't want to talk in those terms, and yet those terms aren't inaccurate. It goes back to what I was saying about the where spiritual principles get manipulated, because I'm going to play law of attraction, and then I'll get my mansion because I put it up on my vision board.
It's developmental. It's a beautiful state, and it works until it works until it don't.
It don't at some point because it tops out.
Because it's still generally played inside the petri dish of a control game. I just have more tools than you do.
Yes, and
then that does top out, but it is for. In time, it is a sweet spot of consciousness, of the growth of consciousness, that looks all of a sudden like we got it tucked in.
Yeah. One thing I think important is to contextualize our conversation and to recognize that that the three of us and everybody on the radio today and listening to the replay, we are all of us actually having this conversation on a high-speed train. And it's easy to turn our attention to what's happening on the train and to be talking about that, and to overlook the fact that we are actually hurtling at high speed on an evolutionary trajectory. So things that were true a year ago or 2 years ago are no longer true now. Things are changing very quickly. Things are changing very quickly, and we are seeing the emergence now. I am seeing it very clearly in the awakening coaching work that I do. I'm seeing clearly the emergence of a new kind of human being, who can embrace paradox, who is so deeply in tune with life that there's no separation between themselves and life, and things flow easily, and things happen on their own, and stress becomes much less of a predominant force. And it's happening. It's important to see it's really happening now. We are emerging into a different kind of humanity.
Yeah, and I'll personalize that because I consider myself in this awakening, personally. I hope that doesn't sound grandiose, but that is, I'm in this. And what I think is fascinating is that it doesn't mean that the other stuff doesn't go away, right?
Duck Dynasty comes with.
Duck Dynasty comes with. Duck, is that what you mean?
No, it's that great show where everybody has the beards and shoots ducks.
I don't know it.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, great. All right, so I thought you meant just duck, like as in lower your head, because there's something whinging at you that's seemingly coming at me in the world, and so my survivalist belief structures and the getting belief structures come along too. Mm-hmm. They're not. It's not like, oh, I awakened and then everything was just flow. For me, there's a tension, a dynamic tension, which actually I think becomes the gift in the world. I mean, part of the conversation is as a bridge, which I see. I'm going to throw us all in the same soup of this one. That we're all sort of bridging. We're doing the work for a lot of other people. We're having this conversation, not just for ourselves, though it is for ourselves, but it's also for all the people listening, because we recognize that we're not the only people banging up against this particular moment in time, developmental stage, yada, 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 right?
It's also really fun.
Right.
It's a lot of fun. It's a passionate interest. I know it is for me. I know it is for you. And I know, Arjuna, it's exactly the same for you. And it is really fun to share passion, and it's fun to give.
Yeah, those are good reasons to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, the term I use for that is not just fun. I coined the term better than sex. That sharing this kind of spaciousness, guiding someone else into a shared spaciousness where you move beyond the control freak mentality we've been talking about. It's better than sex, and actually that's the title of my latest book. It's better than sex, because it's moving into this new dimension. It's like it's better than anything we've experienced.
And then your sex gets better, right?
It's better than sex, and then sex gets even better than sex.
Yeah.
So it is an experience of enchantment in which we begin to experience this relationship with everything. With the spirituality becomes a knowing experience of discovering relationship with ourselves and that other as self. It becomes not just conceptual.
And go ahead, Barnett. Say it. You can. I'll give you a pass to
what
say.
What is it? Say what?
That we're wandering off the reservation.
No.
You weren't what we were going to say? Oh, okay.
Not.
I thought that was coming. We have an agreement. We have an agreement here on this show not to repeat things we've already said.
What I was going to say
is, at least not too many times.
What I was going to say is that the other part of enchantment is not only the exploration of the belief that all is related, but it is the living of life inside of that belief, from inside that Petri dish.
Yeah.
And then, as Arjuna, as you say, you own that you are the speeding train.
Yeah.
And inside an oven that's at 400 degrees, you can cook a pot roast, but not ice cream. And inside of a womb at 31 degrees, you can make ice cream, but not pot roast. And so there's only so much you can do in the world before it tops out, and we begin to turn our attention to the being states, the womb inside all of the bullet train. The being states are the bullet train, or the locomotive, or the coal train, depending on how you orient yourself.
Well, in moment to moment, there's the appropriate shift to accommodate what the moment is drawing forth. What's the possibilities that are arising? Because that's what we kind of come back to. It's the ability to be the chooser, And that's got to make sex better.
Bullet train sex?
Bullet trains. I'm talking about being really aware of an organic moment where we can, jump on the moment, sex related, and I was going to say write it. That's going to get a little too chauvinistic.
It used to be a family show.
Tell us about Better Than Sex, Arjuna. We want to hear about your new book because I haven't read it yet, but I'm excited because I love everything that you do.
He liked sex, so imagine how good it's going to be when it gets better than that.
I absolutely love sex, and I've got a gorgeous wife to share sex with. So for me to say something is better than sex, it's got to be really good.
Yeah.
So Better Than Sex is really about the possibility of awakening in this moment, not in next year after you've done some practice, but right now, to actually shift the attention in this moment from the conflicted, fragmented personalities to your own presence. And then to discover how it's like lighting up a Christmas tree. Suddenly, everything comes alive, and things work, and things flow, and you discover that you have this enormous gift to give to the world. Everybody discovers they've got this incredible gift to give to the world that was overlooked in that state of worry and control. And all of this is available now. That's the wonderful. There's never been a better time to be alive on this planet than today, because it's all available now.
So not only, folks, is it no longer something that we can do tomorrow, tomorrow do this, tomorrow do that, tomorrow tend to my spirituality, tomorrow refocus on caring for myself, tomorrow I'll care for others. But today you can focus on others. Today you can turn to these things. Today you can calibrate to connection. And today you can go online and check out the new book, Better Than Sex, by Arjuna Ardagh. And that is available at Amazon and where else?
Oh, you name it. I think wherever they have books.
Okay, Freeman, name it.
I won't.
Yeah.
I couldn't name it because there's not that many places that they have books at this point.
Well,
in terms of physical stores you go to. Barnes & Noble's the only one I can think of.
Your house is pretty good.
My house
You
is
can
good.
also check out some excerpts on my website, arjunaardagh.com/better than sex. There's a few free chapters there you can read.
Fantastic. And we will make that available in the blurb and on the website and wherever you folks are finding this, unless it's broadcast, in which case when you get home, you'll have to look it up online.
Yeah.
Arjuna.
Well, I so much love and admire you gentlemen for the conversations you have. These are such important conversations delivered with such panache and humor that I take my hat off to both of you. 2 hats, one in each hand.
Oh, bless you. Well, these are the conversations that we want to have. We're going to have anyhow. I mean, Barnett and I are sort of wired this way. So when we're on the radio, it's so funny how many moments that we're having a conversation, the two of us or with friends, and we're like, someone pull down the mic. This is so perfect. Only because it's organic to how we're living our lives. But we are grateful every time you join us. You are always invited back. And of course, at some point when you're in Southern California, we really have to get you in studio. So make that part of your plans, and we look forward to having you back here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Thank you, and I'm looking forward to partying and breaking bread with you soon as well.
All right, my friend.
Gluten-free.
And for those of you listening, stay tuned, because we'll be right back to wrap things up here on Cutting Edge Consciousness.
Welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness, thought-provoking discussions and bold ideas from the edge of possibility.
And welcome back to Cutting Edge Consciousness. Freeman Michaels here with Barnet Bain. Just got done having fun playing with our friend. It's a nice sandbox we have here.
Better than sex. I don't know about that. Let me give that some thought. I'm not going to...
I got to read this book, because what's he talking about? That's a great title for that very good
big
reason.
Claim.
Yeah.
Very big
claim.
Very big claim.
Well, it depends, because I
maybe
think
more regular.
I think that's the issue. No. I think for a lot of people, better than sex isn't really a high bar. It depends. I mean, I don't know. I'm not elevating my sex life to where it's that extraordinary. But just to say that some folks,
it's been
better than sex isn't a high bar.
That kind of experience that you can speak with that authority has been many years.
Yeah.
But you hear. We hear.
I read about it. Yeah.
All right. Well,
should we talk about sex?
I like the creativity that is folded in to everything we've been talking about so far. The discovering of self, which I think is a way to define spirituality. What is spirituality? It really is the developing of relationship, a deepening relationship with self.
Selves.
Well, the deeper you go into self, it's a paradox. The deeper you go into self, the more you discover there are surprises there.
Yeah.
So it's such a creative act. We've said before on the program that this, just as spirituality is a discovery, a deepening of the love of self, creativity, spirituality is also loves work, loves enterprise. And we discover more and more about these below the waterline, the place from which our choices and our momentum arises, and we begin to see them and are able to make new and creative choices instead. Put the clutch in on the old ones and make new ones instead, and reweave the fabric of the dream in an ever more beautiful way. We have access to more information, and we literally pull the threads out on the old tapestry and reweave it into something new.
I love that. And I even love the idea that the old tapestry changes in how we perceive it. So, it's really a loosening of our grip on reality as we've held it in favor of something that's emerging that, is a sweet enough smell, as it were, for your bloodhound nose to be going, oh, there's something bigger than this small way I've held success or money or relationship or anything, really. And I'm committed to, finding more for myself. And it's really beautiful. I mean, it's welcoming what is showing up from a vantage point where it all gets folded in, which, again, is just such a better bargain than having to shoehorn, as you like to say, everything into this narrowly held way that I want it to be.
That we came up in, that we think this is the one way, that there's such a thing as facts are facts, and that's true, but they're relative. So yeah, my bloodhound knows it's really a black dog.
Is it a lab?
It's a lab. It's a
I
black
love labs.
dog.
You know why I love labs? I love labs for their loyalty. Go ahead.
I have a friend told me a story about the Weaver woman. You ever heard this story? The Weaver woman and the black dog?
No.
So the Weaver woman lives in the back of a very, very deep and very, very dark cave. She's very old. She's older than time. And she weaves. She has a big loom there. And she weaves this incredible tapestry. The shuttlecock goes back and forth with these incredible threads, and she weaves reality. She weaves the dream. And then every once in a while, she gets up from the loom and she walks deep, deep, deep into the cave to a cauldron. And she digs into the cauldron, and there to find new threads of possibility, and with the most glorious, the most beautiful qualities and lusters and colors and materials. And while she's away, she has a black dog. While she's away, the black dog jumps up and grabs a thread and pulls it and undoes the entire thing. She pulls it and shakes his head and comes undone the entire her whole work. She comes back and it's lying in a heap of thread on the floor. And she picks up and starts weaving afresh. And this time working in all of the new things that she brought back from before. And she reweaves the world every time. And isn't that the way we do life? We weave a tapestry of reality and learn something new, and the whole thing comes undone, and then we weave it again more beautifully than ever before.
I love that.
Anyway, I love the story. I'm grateful to the lineage from which it came. And
the wisdom tradition.
The wisdom tradition, which is the antidote to the suffering and the struggle and the bewilderment that exists that we were talking with earlier with Arjuna. The antidote is compassion and this love of the parts of ourselves that have been through the difficulties, and and we can recognize it in others, and the compassion as
and
well.
We can recognize the mythology.
Yes, all of it is, and all of it adds up to the resources to extend empathy and compassion, because we understand where they're operating from or where we're operating from. And that coupled with wisdom, which is a knowing that there is more than there's more than the line that we have it hooked up to, without letting go, without necessarily doing that.
Right.
There's more to it than that.
Well, and
that's the wisdom.
And that the line that we've held it as comes too. That we just weave that into the tapestry. It's part of.
There's more than that without letting go of it.
Yeah, that's it.
You reweave the tapestry, but there's new threads in there, and the world becomes even more beautiful each time. But the old tapestry, the old weavings don't get tossed out.
Well, the thread on the ground is the old tapestry. We're just putting it into new context and finding out what that's going to look like. Yeah. And I love the creative process of the unfolding, really appreciating what's unfolding. And all the moments when it comes into view, part of the creative process is you're working away, and it's all the happy accidents, all the beautiful chaos, all the ways that we think, it's looking a particular way. I mean, I just had one of these this morning. We were talking at our coffee that we go to. And I was saying, who knew? Like, I'm seeing this whole thing emerge, and this is a work-related element of what I do that seems to be emerging that I would have never guessed at. I didn't think that's what I was doing, and yet, it's amazing to see what magic is kind of coming from the choices I'm making, because the choices are in alignment. So then this expression starts to take shape and form, and I go, wow, how interesting is that? So it's this magical element. Like, what kind of magic might we create? If we're following these frequencies, these threads of possibility that have it within them, built in qualities like fun, like service, like joy, with a big dose of compassion and a little bit of humor, because we got to laugh at the whole craziness of it all. Hey, this could be a really magical and masterful form. But more often than not, we jump ahead and want to figure out what the form is and want to control it.
Well, we usually paint with, or we color with the small box of Crayolas, the 8-pack.
Right.
And then you can color with the 12-pack or the 64-pack or the 112-pack. And
that's it.
But we usually just color with the 6-pack.
That's right.
The kind you get at Denny's.
That's it.
And so whatever comes up, I'm going to struggle with it. Whatever comes up, or I'm going to war with it. It's a battle. And,
I don't have a crayon for this.
I go to traffic. I'm at war with it. I'm late. I'm at the back of the line at Starbucks. It's going slow. I'm at war with it. And we generally, or whatever your color is, whatever your crayon is, and to become aware, begin to develop an awareness. I'm drawing with the same colors again, and it'll always be inside the lines.
Right.
I can maybe bring I can bring another color to bear here. Maybe a different quality. Maybe I can bring the desire to. Instead of a warrior, I can be a destroyer and a creator. I'll destroy the tendency to want to always do that, and color with some exploring creative.
What
color.
I love about this metaphor is it really works too with little kids. There are these lines that when they color within, or they follow the numbers from 1 to 53 or whatever, ultimately it creates a picture. And for them, that is really exciting when you're a very little kid and you don't know what 1 to 54 is going to get you, and you see it emerge and you color it in. It's like, wow, this beautiful picture emerged, but it was pre-planned. What we're talking about is actually, and at that point, you hand them a blank piece of paper. Actually, more often than not, they can handle the blank piece of paper. We just don't think they can, so we give them the color by numbers. But that more and more the blank piece of paper is exciting and intriguing.
I think you need both.
Okay.
You go to you hand somebody a blank piece of paper. We see this when these totalitarian governments fall, the Arab Spring or something, and suddenly you have freedom. No, people can't handle.
No, that's a good point.
You can't handle more responsibility than you can developmentally handle.
No,
Usually
that's right.
It goes into anarchy, or it goes into worse. It goes into tribalism. It goes into predatory and command and control. People might make. It goes into lawlessness, and so there is a balance between being respectful of a tradition and of the rules of the tradition.
I love it.
Being respectful of them, and then out of ownership of them, as a creator, as an actor, you have to know the craft before you can bend it or supersede it or transcend it. But there is always, if you jump past a mastery of form, you're a dilettante because you don't have any sense of the structuring energies that it takes to.
No, this is so wise.
Hold vision. It's both and.
Yeah.
It is important to understand how to draw in the lines.
Yeah.
So that you can understand the freedoms outside of the line.
That's it.
But if you don't ever have lines, then outside the lines, you see what children's drawings look like. They're developmentally beautiful, but they are expressions of movements of energy. They're not. They don't have the same menu of relevance in terms of consciously trying to express or capture or share a wisdom or a beauty or a dimensionality, or Picasso didn't break those rules until he knew them so that he could break them.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, so I guess the going back to the blank page, at some point a blank page is exciting. At some point early on, developmentally, we can't handle it.
Thrilling, yeah. I mean, you look at a Jackson Pollock, and it is staggeringly, heart-stoppingly beautiful. And sometimes, you go and you stand there, and there's always somebody who says, "Well, anybody, I could do that." Sure. Right. I don't think so.
Yeah. So the craft enough to make it simple. We talk about this with language. Is
that Oscar Wilde?
I think it was.
Who is that?
I think it was. Oh, I'm blanking. I can see him. The guy who said the coldest winter I ever spent was a summer in San Francisco, that guy, he's the one who said...
What was the line, though?
The quote is, I'm sorry for the length of this. I didn't have the time to make it shorter.
Beautiful.
Yeah. That the craft... It was Mark Twain. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, Mark Twain said that. It's the idea that simple, in this very thoughtful way, is something one comes to. There's simple, it's sort of like the mature innocence that we've talked about in the past. There's this initial innocence, which is just innocence. And then we go through a maturation process, and there comes a point in one's development where there's a mature innocence. Yeah. So it's not an innocence because you don't know anything else. It's an innocence because you choose. You know all these other ways that it's been held in the past. You know all this other stuff, and you go, yeah, but I'm choosing to open my eyes to things beyond that. And that's the level I think that we were speaking about with Arjuna, and I think that you and I are really working with. It's like
Shiva is both creator and destroyer.
Yes.
To create something new, you have to shatter the previous structures, and we forget that sometimes. You can't just be. It is part of the process to venture beyond the old structure in order to birth something entirely new. You're going to make an omelet, you're going to break some eggs.
And we don't just tear down to tear down, that there's something in the evolutionary way that we can hold it.
But if you don't have that piece, then people do tear down to tear down.
Yep.
And
well, then it's a mess.
And that is not an artful creativity.
No, it'll be a bumpy ride. For those of you listening, I just want to say that we are always grateful to have you listening to this show, but we want to invite you to share it because, we like it and you like it. And so tell a friend and join us on all of our various places, on our page, at our website, join our community. And thanks for tuning in.
See you next week.